All right. So for our main presentation today, I'm going to be talking about pest rats. And as we said, today is National Rat Day. So happy National Rat Day to everyone out there. Um, I'm going to be talking about pest rats. So people may have pet rats that they have at home. That is our next pet on the list. We plan to get a pet rat because we've heard so many great things about them. They're cute, they're cuddly, they're smart. They like to be tickled. They like to do activities and go through tunnels. So they could be really great pets. But when they are invading our structures and they are not domesticated, they can be pests. So one of the main reasons that we are concerned about rats in homes is that they are a public health pest. Rats carry or contain allergens. Their feces can cause allergic reactions in people. Their dander from their fur and their urine may cause allergies as well. Um, Rodents carry a number of pathogens that can affect people. So these can be transmitted directly from the rodents if you encounter rodent urine or urine feces. They can also be directly transmitted in the unfortunate incident where people are bitten by rats. But they can also be transmitted indirectly. So the bottom right picture here, you see a juvenile rat that I captured in a crawl space in New York City, and that rat had over 80 fleas on it. If that rat was carrying pathogens, the flea would feed on the rat and then potentially feed on your pet or you, and they can transfer those pathogens. So we have to be concerned about rats, not just because of the damage that we regularly think of, where they're gnawing on wires and walls, they're gnawing on PEX piping, which could result in flooding. They are contaminating food sources and they're disgusting. We also have to be very aware of the public health risks of rats. So what I wanted to do today is sort of go over a day in the life of a Norway rat. That is the species that most people that would be on this call today would be dealing with. There's another species of rat in the United States called the roof rat, and that is more southern species as well as coastal. So places like Southern California, Florida, Texas, Louisiana all deal with roof rats. But we in the Northeast and Midwest deal with Norway rats. We'll talk about their biology and ecology, which can help us better manage them if we understand our target pest. So a day in the life of a Norway rat actually starts at night. This animal is most active at dawn and dusk. You could see this figure from a 1940s publication where the peak activity was occurring 2 to 3 hours after sunset and then 2 to 3 hours before sunset. So they are an animal that gives people a lot of fear and a lot of concern, but in nature, they're a prey species. So other animals are trying to eat them and they stay active at night so that they can avoid some of the main predators that are active during the day. And in this figure, our little arrow shows this rat in a storm drain in New York City. Now, rats, by their biology, are active in that window after sunset and before sunrise, but food access will influence their activity. So this is a video I shot at a location that was having a severe rat infestation, and rats were active in the middle of the day. Sometimes that is an indication that there's a huge population and the subordinate individuals are feeding during the day because that's when they can be active and not be attacked by the dominant individuals. But in this case, the food was available during the day. A homeowner was feeding chickens at 9 in the morning and then putting out food for their dogs in the afternoon. And so the rats were active at that time of day. So one of the most important things that we'll keep coming back to today is in order to eliminate rat and mouse populations, we have to alter their access to food. If we change access or we prevent access to their food, we can really severely reduce their populations. Rats the Norway rat is a ground nesting organism. It prefers to nest, it prefers to nest in the soil where it digs burrows, preferentially underneath structures such as we see here, a large rock. It may also be underneath roots of a tree. In urban areas, it could be underneath sidewalks. These structures provide temperature buffering, so at night that stone is radiating heat that was absorbed during the day. It provides protection against predators getting into that burrow. It can reduce the amount of water that gets into burrows. So a variety of reasons for them to build their tunnels underneath these structures. The nest is home base. We'll watch this quick video with the sounds of summer. So this is not taken now. This was taken in September. With the rat coming out of its burrow and going directly to a food source, they like to build their nests as close to a food source as possible. All right. So in this case, having the ability to watch activity and movement of a rat can actually be very helpful in where we place our devices. Placing a management piece of equipment on this rock would intercept that rat very easily. Okay. Oops. So the availability of harborage, or the earthen areas that rats can dig their burrows, determines if rats can successfully establish in an area. If there's nowhere for them to burrow, or there's no voids for them to build their nests in, they're unlikely to stay in that area. So we want to be aware of what the burrow openings look like and how many there could be. In this picture, you can see easily 3 openings, 2 underneath the slab and then 1 a little bit further out. Active burrows are smooth. They're about 3.5 to 4 inches wide, and they may contain hair. As the rodents are going into those burrows, hair gets stuck on roots and soil above. Now, in this figure, we can also see the bolt holes that are part of the rodent burrow system. So this opening, if you could see the cursor here, this opening that is sort of a concave area that's covered by debris, that would be an escape hole created by rats so that if a predator followed them into the opening, they could zoom out the other way and avoid being captured. Considering that harborage availability determines if rats can establish, one thing that we can do is deny access. So on the exterior of buildings, we can create these vegetation-free zones where we use small crushed stones, about 1 inch in diameter, 2 feet out from the foundation and about 6 inches deep, to prevent burrowing. This will discourage them from digging in this area and prevent that entry into the crawl space. Rats consume about 1/10 of their body weight every day. So for an adult rat, this is about 1 to 3 ounces of food. Um, you can see here that they will feed on a variety of food sources. This was bird seed that was thrown out for birds. In suburban areas, bird feeders are a major attractant for rat populations. An interesting thing about rats is that they cannot vomit, and their feeding behavior protects them against poisoning. So a rat doesn't go out and feed a whole bunch on one type of food. It'll go out, take a few nibbles here, go to another site, take a few more nibbles, and then retreat back to its nest site. Um, that's important to keep in mind if we're considering options to bait rats, because we need to have placements in multiple locations that they're going to feed on in their regular foraging. To acquire food, rats can chew through a variety of materials. They could chew through wood, thick plastic like we see here, and even sheetrock. They are not very good at chewing through dense metals like stainless steel, brass, and iron. Although I will say that in some cases, rats can chew through sewage and plumbing pipes if there's been deterioration of that metal over time with the water wearing down the inside of that pipe. So they can continue to gnaw on structures and break through eventually with persistence. So if we want to keep rats out of our homes or out of various structures, we want to rat proof or implement some sort of pest exclusion. And we have a great website that contains a lot of information about rat proofing your home or other structures. The website is listed here, pestexclusion.org, and we will put that link in the chat at the end of this presentation. Importantly, we have a section on material selection, which is really critical to ensure that we're using materials that are rat proof. Standing water is also really important for rats. Mice can actually derive enough liquid from feeding on fatty foods. They digest it, metabolize it, and it provides water for them. Whereas rats need to drink standing water or feed on items that are that have a very high moisture content. So here's a rat in New York City feeding on just a little puddle that accumulated on top of a landscape rock. In homes and other buildings, some sources of water could be a sump pit. So the way that these work is that they pump the water out when the float gets high enough, but sometimes there's just a little bit of water that remains, and rats will try to drink that. In this unfortunate case, or fortunate, depending on how you look at it, the rat fell in but was not able to get out. So that's one source of water in homes, and also condensation on pipes. So in this case, you could see all these water beads that are present, and this very dark staining here is evidence that a rat was feeding here. That's what's known as a sebum mark, and it's deposited from the oils on their skin as rats travel over the same location or travel through the same opening over and over again. So just like we want to change the availability of food, we also want to eliminate standing water or prevent access to minimize rat attractiveness. In new sites, rats often stay along walls. They're able to detect texture changes, so they stay along a wall so that they can avoid predation and not be ensnared in something like mud or a glue trap. So you'll watch this rat run along the wall and then stop before he makes the turn to his left. In the picture on the right, you can see this hair that's right above the foot of the rat, and that is actually how they detect those texture changes. These guard hairs can send messages to their brain to quickly stop their activity so that they don't get trapped. When rats are comfortable, they can totally change their foraging behavior. So they may run through the middle of a room if they've walked through that area before, and they move very fast and stick to the shadows. If you blink, you'll miss this guy, so he's going to run from one shadow to another. And that's why rats often go undetected for a long period of time, because they are cryptic, they stick to the shadows, and can easily avoid our detection. They can use vertical pathways to move through environments. So here again, you see that brown smudging or sebum mark. That's from the rats wedging themselves in this corner and crawling up over that ledge. They can actually climb pipes that are less than 3 inches wide, which allows them to gain access into roof areas or other above our head locations that are difficult to inspect and often overlooked. So when we see these types of marks that are left behind, we can intercept them with control devices, and I'll talk a little bit about the different types of traps that are available. So one of the additional techniques that we want to think about is not just eliminating the food and the water and the harborage, but how can we immediately reduce rat numbers? There's two main techniques that are used, trapping and baiting, and I want to go over some advantages and disadvantages of each. Trapping with many different types of traps are useful because it helps us to monitor where in the location they're being trapped. If we keep catching a rat in the same corner of a building, then we have a good idea that there's harborage there, there's an entry point there for rats to get in, or there's a food source. Without that sort of trapping information, we don't know where rats are moving. There's no hidden or dead rats that we kill. So we'll talk about with baiting, if a rat feeds on a rodenticide bait and then goes into a wall void in someone's home, we may not be able to access that location, and that dead rat will smell. There's no non-target poisoning with trapping. We're not concerned about other animals eating a dead rat carcass and then acquiring a rodenticide poison, which could be lethal to them as well. Some drawbacks of trapping is that it's not always a clean kill. So there's instances where rats can get trapped on their hindquarters. They could just get a paw stuck. That could lead to suffering of the animal, and it could put the homeowner in a difficult situation of potentially having to extinguish the animal themselves. And trapping does require patience. You have to be invested in the effort to place traps correctly and monitor those devices. If they get tripped, you have to reset them. For baiting, it's less hands-on and it's easier. It's potentially more humane if the animals, if you're feeding a product that is not going to induce severe reactions, it could be more humane than getting stuck on a trap that causes suffering. There are non-target risks with the baits, and as we said, we could have hidden or dead rodents in walls that smell but also attract secondary pests. We we also want to make sure that you're aware that not every product that's sold for rat management is going to work as advertised, and I'll talk about that on the next slide. Device placement is the key to success. Because if we're not placing devices where the rats are active, we're unlikely to intercept them. And then the final thing about any type of rat management is that rat populations grow really fast. Rats can have 4 to 8 or up to 12 pups per litter, and they can have multiple litters per year. So if we're not really engaged in the effort to reduce their numbers, our effort can be outpaced by their reproduction. Some ineffective approaches. I was on Facebook this morning looking at group chats and seeing all the things that people recommend. Ultrasonic repellers, essential oils, Irish Spring soap. Why that particular brand people think is effective, I don't know. And dryer sheets. You could see here that dryer sheets were included into a rat nest in a vehicle engine. All of these techniques that are listed here have no scientific evidence, are not things that you should waste your time or money on. What does work is trapping. There's a variety of traps. You can reach out to our program if you're interested in learning more about the different types of traps that are available. Some are versatile, could be used in a bunch of different settings. Some are fast and easy to set, which are beneficial. The trap on the left can be a little tricky to set, and some people have a difficult time placing them in locations where rats are active. For rats, we need to pre-bait them. This means that we need to actually invite them to come to the trap and feed there before we try to engage the trap and kill them. So you see here, we've put a lot of moist food item on the trap. We'll do that for about a week or 3 to 5 days, depending on how long it takes for the rats to visit that site multiple times. And then we'll use a small piece of bait tied to that trigger. So we have to acclimate them before we actually kill them. Some other things we could do, again, securing the bait, we could use nesting material. This is attractive for reproducing females as they're building their nest. So we can actually slow reproduction significantly in that way. We can place traps without bait in runways where we know that the rats have been active. And one thing that we shouldn't do is overbait the traps to make sure that we are not affecting how that trigger is set and how the device deploys. So for long-term management, the first and most important thing that we need to do is eliminate food, water, shelter, and access into homes. Otherwise, we end up on this rodent control treadmill where rodents come in, we make a complaint, maybe we hire a pest professional or we do our own intervention to reduce numbers. But because of their reproductive potential, we just see a rebound and we don't manage the population. Trapping, baiting, and other lethal techniques just harvest individuals. So we need to really focus on addressing their food, shelter, and water to manage their populations. And that is it for our introduction to rats. I will be giving the IPM Minute today too on the myth about using cats for rats, but I did want to share some of our resources here. So we do have a mouse and rats page on our New York State IPM programs website. We also have a YouTube channel that has a bunch of videos about rodents and their management. So I put those in the chat. You can find those. In the essence of time, I will just go through the next presentation and then see if we have a few minutes for questions at the end. So for our IPM Minute today, we wanted to address the myth of cats for rat control. And if you've seen some of our other myth-busting presentations, you know that there's a lot of different ideas out there that people have about addressing various pest problems, and often these myths are completely inaccurate and don't work. So that'll cue us up for our presentation today. Rat control is challenging. We just talked about the behavior and biology of rats and how they're intelligent creatures, how they can move in environments in ways that are difficult to detect. So rats are smart and complex organisms, but when it comes to management, people want a quick and easy solution. So they want to be able to just put something out or buy something that's going to solve the problem for them with minimal investment. And unfortunately, that's not the case for rats because they're so complex. We know that predators can kill rats, and so they are naturally appealing. There's groups that try to encourage nesting of raptors to kill rats in agricultural areas. And we know that municipalities across the world, not just here in the States, have tried to rely on predators like cats to manage rat populations. So this is just a few examples of headlines from popular media. Unfortunately, and here's our scoop right here, there's no evidence that cats can control rat populations. And in fact, there's evidence only to the contrary. Cats target small prey items, so there's been some surveys of the prey items that cats bring back to residential homes and also what's in the gut contents of cats, and they find small mammals like mice and birds. Occasionally, they will kill juvenile and subadult rats. So rats can grow in size up to 500 grams. That's a regular size adult rat. And the size that is often killed by cats are about 200 grams. So they're very small rats, they're juveniles, they're a little bit bigger than mice. Rats don't leave areas when cats are present. They just change their activity patterns. So if the cat comes in every day at noon or they hang around during the daytime but go home at night, then the rats are active only at night. If cats are present at nighttime, then the rats become active during the day. So the research has shown that having predators like cats present doesn't force rats to leave, it just changes their behavior. And as evidence that it doesn't work, city cats and rats continue to coexist. They have lived together in cities for as long as we've had them here in the United States. Rats have been a problem in our cities, and cats have been used as a control technique, but haven't been successful. This picture, little grainy, comes from a 1986 publication where they were studying the ability of cats to manage rat populations. Now, unfortunately, cats actually, outdoor cats and feral cats come with a lot of concerns. So not only are they not able to successfully manage rats, but they do kill a lot of other organisms. Um, it's estimated that feral cats kill over 2.4 billion birds per year. They also kill a number of reptiles and small mammals. So they're having this huge impact on wildlife while not managing the target pest that's often the reason that they're released into rural, suburban, and urban areas. Cats can also be reservoirs of pathogens that affect people. So on the right here, we have a figure about toxoplasmosis. This is a pathogen that is carried in the host of cats. When they defecate, that pathogen is either put into litter boxes, into soil, and can be acquired by livestock that feed on the plants that are growing in that area, or by people that come into contact with unwashed foods or the litter boxes. And toxoplasmosis can have severe effects for pregnant women, resulting in a miscarriage. There's also effects for other people, so children and men can be sick with this as well. Cats also can carry their own ectoparasites and pathogens that can be affect our pets indoors. So they can bring indoor fleas, mites, ticks, a variety of worms as well. And then there's also welfare issues with outdoor cats that are used for rat control. So there's an estimated, I wrote it down here, 60 to 100 million stray cats in the United States. Some of them are deployed for rat management. There are programs that try to make sure that they're not actively reproducing and populations don't get out of control. But there's a huge number of cats that are out there, and it's known that cats that are well fed are not going to feed or attack rats. So some people will intentionally not feed these cats so that they are better hunters, which has concerns for their welfare. And if people do feed them because they're concerned about their health, then they become ineffective at managing rat populations. So the myth is busted. Cats do not control rats. Outdoor and feral cats pose a risk to people, indoor pets, and wildlife. Unfortunately, there's no silver bullets in pest control in general, and especially not in the case of managing rats. Again, the take home is that we need to identify and eliminate the food, water, and shelter that supports rats and manage rat numbers with trapping and baiting.